So basically, if you want to calculate the total time taken by something, earlier I showed you that we can do like a start time and we can do an end time. Between that, we can calculate. But timeit comes with like some unique features. Generally, if I say like some number, say 2 to the power of 128. So it's like a very large number. So, but when the processing itself, it will take some time, right? So if you want to know how much time it is taking, especially within the Jupyter notebooks, these are called as magic blocks or magic cells. In a Jupyter notebook or an IPython, every line is treated as like a separate block, right? So that block, if you want to qualify with certain things, we can specify that. These are called as magic blocks. They will start with an ampersand. So the moment you place like the time, did you see, instead of just getting your output, along with that, you are getting how much CPU time, how much wall time, and others, system time and tone. So these are like the built-in features of the timeit module, which were inherited. Similarly, if I say time, say how much time it took, it is explained. For a print statement, it will take very small time, right? So that's what is mentioned. If you take a very big operation, it will give that correspondingly. So like that, time is a one thing which will help. There is one more magic block called as timeit. Timeit magic block will not give like total time taken, but it will do the same logic repeated multiple times. Means whatever let's say here, this is past simply. For this, it is saying like, hey, I have run for like 7 runs. How many times? So these many loops each time. And then it found the average value. Similar if you give this one, so if I say time means it will give just this operation. But if I say timeit, it will give these many loops. See here also, if you see, I'm saying like one of the values none. I'm checking whether it is value is none or not. So to check that, it is doing this much, saying it took like 32 nanoseconds on average, plus or minus 2.7 nanoseconds, when it have done for like 7 loops. Why, sir, every time 7 loops? If you want specifically number of loops, you can give that. There is an option called as -r. So where you specify how many loops you want to run, how many runs you want to do. So how many runs you have specified. Similarly, if I say timeit -n, n means like, how many loops you want to do. So here it's see 1 loop. Earlier it should see, so these many loops. So similarly, if you don't give that, the default time, it will go for 7 runs, and so 1 lakh loops like that. Similarly, if you see like, these are all like 1 percentile. These are like 2 percentiles. Sir, what is the difference? Generally 1 percentile, if you give, this magic block will work only for this line. So here also we placed a magic block. But if there are 2 lines, but you did magic block only for the second line. So with respect to second line only, it will give the statistics. Similarly, if you want the entire logic to be executed and you want to get, then you need to place 2 percentiles. This is also a magic block. So now you understood, right? In IPython or Jupyter Notebook, if you want for an entire block of code to get something happen, so we need to place 2 asterisks. If it is for 1 line, so single percentile. So this entire logic for loop is happening. So what it does, by default 7 rounds, so 1 loop it is doing. So when you do like a block of code, then it will do by default for 1 loop. It will not do for these many times. With a single line, by default it will do like that. Similarly, you see here, I did a timeit, but for like a single line. What I did here, the random is a module, which you will learn afterwards. It will get some random value. You are looping over this much times and you are getting a random value. And finally, you are doing an in-place sort. So for sorting, generally, it will take timsort, right? So for timsort, for these many values, how much time it is taking? These many microseconds, sorry. Means it is taking more time. Earlier, it used to take nanoseconds, microseconds. And here it is taking like microseconds. So milliseconds, sorry. So it means furthermore late. So similarly, if I say time, so you know the difference between single line and multiple line magic blocks. The same thing you can apply, so F strings and all these things. You see, generally in the string operations, they say that F strings are the most smart enough. But F strings were suitable for to be strong enough when you go for a larger values. If you see in this case, for the timeit, I have two words. I need to join, concatenate them. So if I take this example, so combining them, it is taking like this much time, 180 nanoseconds. But the same thing you can do with a typical plus operation. For the plus operation, it took like 145 nanoseconds. Okay. And if I do like, delimiter.join by passing both of them, it took like these many nanoseconds. Now see like which one took more time. So timeit took, F strings took like very less time compared to the ordinary concatenation operation and this one. So F string is the best. Similarly, if I go for like timeit of this one, see here, this is like a old style formatting. See old style formatting, how much time it took? 215 nanoseconds, means like much greater than, right, compared to others. And also like this is like a new style formatting. Even new style formatting took further more time, right? So this is one example I'm giving. Now take this as an assignment that I did for 2 strings. You do for like 10 strings together. Then you see the difference, how much you are getting the increase. Similarly, if you go for like templates, hope you know that in the string operations I told, during the string operations, there is a module called a string. Within that, there is something called as template. So before the formatting came, people used to rely on this kind of templating, where you give the template, like with the percentiles, with the dollar symbols, and it will go and replace the corresponding values. If I do like that, it is saying like 2.62 microseconds. So it means it is taking much more time. So this is taking nanoseconds. These are all nanoseconds. This is microseconds, means which is much more slow. So it's not a good idea. So now you got one conclusion. Similarly, I have given one more example where if you want to explicitly do, instead of the magic cells, let's say you want to do a Python program, then you can explicitly ask like timeit.timeit and we can give the options. So if you pass, it will do for that much amount of time. And you are doing the same thing for how many number of times you want to pass. So, and if you want to repeat it, so you can specify, it will repeat it that much times. So like that, there are multiple operations. And the next big thing about not just time. Sometimes you want to know how much memory is consumed, where it is taking more exactly. So if you have like a 10 lines of code, you cannot place a timeit for everything, right? So individually, every line you cannot go. Either you place for the entire block of code or like individual. But if you want to know the individually where it is taking more time, which so and so, then you can go for C profiler. So in a Python script, if you have, we can do in a command line also. C profiler.run off. If you give a code, it will execute like this. So how many calls it is going standardly, time taken, so how much. So this is a very small value, but if you go increasing, you will understand. But typically what it does is like this n calls is the total number of times the particular function is called. So this function is called only one time, right? This particular logic. So like, which is that? So you never use this list comprehension, but this was happened, right? This is a comprehension. And there is a behind like string module, built-in executable modules, and the profilers like that. If you go for bigger examples, you will understand more. Next, so like this, if I go further, we have even into working on the datetime module. That's the most important thing among all, so that you need to be aware of. In the datetime module, so you will learn about some important and crucial things which you have not seen till now. Okay. If you see in the datetime, what you can see is like, what are you doing in a time module that can be done in datetime also. But datetime was more famous than time module because of a lot of features which are useful for the real time purpose. Date and time, the name itself is saying either we can do with the date related things or time related things or together. also. So if I say DA here, by default, it has a constants like, so one end, so 9999. So this is the maximum year that it is supporting. Beyond that, what will happen? They will increase one more, but we don't know like who will be there at the time. So, and if you see the main attributes, as I told you, it will have what is the minimum and maximum values that it can do. Resolution means. So the minimum date it can do is this one. Maximum date is this one. So we are neither in the first one nor will be in the next one. But what is the resolution? Means like the minimum difference that we can track is like till microseconds by default. That's a resolution. So if I go like, dates, in terms of the dates, 111 till like this much date, it can go. And similarly for the time, so minimum 0, maximum this much, right? With the default resolution of this much. So, sir, if I want a better resolution, yeah, we can do. But this is the default ones that it is supporting. And this is the time zone information. By default, you don't have the time zone. You need to add the time zone. That is again another story I will tell. Generally, any date time will have two objects, right? Date and time. By default, it's a date time object. Individually, it has like a date object and time object together in it. If I want to know the current date and time, I can go with this operation. So datetime.datetime.now. If I do based upon the time, I will get it. If let's say I go in a Python in interactive mode, and if I ask, hey, I need to first import the datetime, right? Import datetime. And if I says datetime.datetime.now, it is giving what is the current date and time. Especially, so in tomorrow onwards, so daylight savings are changing, right? So you'll see a lot of difference with respect to the time module. It's an interesting time to learn. So here you see, so 2439, and the format is like this. But sir, when I'm printing, the format is different. Yes, exactly. Now the point is like, whenever you do in interactive mode, like IPython notebook or so, it will give the object directly. But if you were printing the same thing, print will make the things different. Did you see? Print will, when you use the print function, the object becomes different, right? So means like what print is doing an extra thing. So it is doing to the particular format. Sir, why it is doing in a particular format? You want in another format? There are ways. So as we have seen in the string strp and strf. But like to see that, you have created an object datetime.datetime.now. It has both the date concept. If you want individually the date from that object, you can ask, you will get it. Similarly, if you want to ask only time, dot time, if you give, you will get it. What is the time? So hours, minutes, seconds, and milliseconds. How many milliseconds also it will give. And similarly, you see here, you have a datetime object. From that, you individually extracted the date and time. In the reverse way, if I have this date and time, I can combine to get the date time, right? Yes. So vice versa is also possible. If I create, again, I will get the same thing, whichever it is. Similarly, sometimes we have like a scenarios where you want to check what is the previous date, or like 10 days after today, or like some other things, right? For that, we can work on something called as time delta. So datetime.time delta. If you want to know the help of it, so in IPython notebook or Jupyter, you can write a question mark before followed by the particular thing. Then it will give the detailed help, or you can explicitly tell help of the particular thing. So here you can see delta time. It can give the time change difference in any of these parameters. Means either you want difference in terms of days, minutes, seconds, hours, all of that, or a combination of some also you can give. If you see in this example, I am giving a datetime dot of day of 1, means 1 day difference I'm giving. So from today, I'm removing 1 day. That's it, right? So that is how I get yesterday date. If I want like 1 week before, so I need to say day is equal to 7. Then from today's 7 days back, it will give the date. So that's how it works. So, so similarly, if I have like yesterday's date and today's date, If you subtract, what is the difference? Only 1 day, right? So you will get that 1 day. Means you not only can create the objects and you can do operations also with that. And similarly, if you have a values, you can create your own custom datetime also. Till now, what you did datetime.datetime.now. So what is the current time in the system wherever you are? That local time it will give. If you want explicitly some date, you can give them by passing like date. So here you want to pass only date object. So that's why you are passing the values in this order. Or you can explicitly pass like a keyword arguments. In both ways, it will create the date. So sorry, only date. Similarly, if you want to create the time, so for time, if you don't give also, it will work. If you don't give, it will give the 0 values. But if you explicitly give, then it will pass that also. But if you give like in a key equal to key and a value, like a keyword arguments, then also it will do. So now you understood individually, you can create your own custom time and custom date. In the same fashion for date time also you can pass. But observe for the date time and anything. So time is like not a mandatory because we should know explicitly which date. If you don't give the time, it will give 0. So that's why the time is zeros, but the explicitly you give the values. But apart from that, if you pass the time also, then it will give the time too. Similarly, if you want to create both date and time together, so you can pass all values, it will work. In the same fashion, sometimes you will get a use case where like say someone has added a registry. So in that registry, they have some dates, which they mistakenly added as some other year. So now you need to change that year or like month or so and so. For that, we can do a replace. Subtract is different. Replace is different, right? So you don't want to do math. You just want to change one month or a year or something. So it will change correspondingly. Earlier, the date was something, say 1984, 6/24, but you want to change year to something and month or to something. But the remaining things you see, the same things are there. Remainings are the different, same. So like that, you can do replace. And also observe when you're doing a replace, we need to assign to a new object. So anything is like an immutable. We cannot do to the same thing. That's what you need to understand. And similarly, you know this concept of UTC from timestamp, which I told in the last class about what is a timestamp, how it has calculated. From 1st of January 1970 onwards, how many seconds were passed. So that was calculated as the timestamp. If I give 0, it will give that epoch time. And from the epoch time, if you want to calculate the difference from today, so you will get like how many days difference is there. And if you have this time delta, which is also a date time object, right? So for that, if you do dot days, individually how many days passed also it will give. Or how many seconds, all these things are like total seconds. Now the question for you is like, what is the difference between so these seconds and the total seconds? So that you need to let me know. So simple. So I'm telling now itself. So total seconds is the timestamp. So seconds is the individual thing. Similarly, if you give some particular difference, what is there? So it will give the current date again. So like that. So similarly, if I want to explicitly work with the time information, I know though that datetime.datetime.now will give the local time. But if you want like the UTC time, you can do .UTC. Sir, if I want to go for a specific other times, that's where like the time zone and others comes. That I will tell shortly. But individually, what you need to understand is, if I have a datetime object, if I want to get in a particular format, how? Hope you remember I told the same site on the other day, strf time. So rather than I'm mentioning everything, that's a good site for like you to understand the different formats. And if you can see, this is like a old style formatting, string formatting. So wherever the percentiles are there, those will be replaced by the corresponding values. But apart from that, if you have any other slashes, hyphens, spaces, columns, everything will come as it is. Similarly, if you want in a particular order, you can specify. Small y means like 2-digit year, capital Y means 4-digit year, like that you have. So these are all the things. And one thing you need to aware is, percentile H means it's like a 24 hours format of the hours. You got 7, right? Whereas if I say percentile I, you can see that it is what? So it is a 12 hours format. When you have a 12 hours format, you should ensure to add this percentile P, else it would be confusing, right? So it will give the AM or PM, ante-meridian or post-meridian. So like that. So, and apart from that, if you want the time zone information also, you can do percentile Z. But did you see that though you have added percentile Z, it is not telling you what is the time zone? Yes, because by default, when you ask any time or date time or anything, it will have what are the values you passed, but it will not have the default time zone. So, sir, at least local time should have the time zone, right? But it will not have. If you want the time zone information, that I will tell afterwards. So similarly, you need to remember this called STRF. RF saying like representation, right? String formatting. STR means string, formatting time, F time, STR F time. Similarly, there is another thing called STRP time, means like what? A string representation of the time. Means, so if you have a datetime object or time object or data object, you can convert to a string using STR of time. But the vice versa happens. Say, especially when you are reading an Excel or a CSV file, which has all the dates. But if you want to process those dates, how Python understands that string is a date? So the date can be of different formats. So you need to pass your string, which is like a date time or anything. And you need to also pass the corresponding string formatting. So the string formatting should include the exact details. So if it is 4-digit year, you need to say percentile capital Y. If it is a hyphen, you should say hyphen. So which is whatever it is there, the same syntax you need to write, but change it. So then it will create a datetime object. This is called a string representation. Means from a string to convert to a datetime object. So if I have 8th April 1945, say 8 is a percentile D. April, the entire word came, right? Percentile capital B. And 4 digits year is like percentile capital Y. And between all of that, there is a white space. You have given the white space. Similarly, if you go for datetime.time delta, as I told you just now about that, if you don't want like 1 day or 2 days, see here, it was given 23 days and 34 minutes from the current date. So this much difference it will go and it will add to it. And similarly, if you go for datetime.time delta of days equal to 20. So how much date? So it will increase that to the next date. Like that, you can generate the future or back days. Now coming to the concept of time zones. For time zones to work, so there are different ways to work, but the simple and cleanest way is using the pytz. Unfortunately, pytz won't come built in. You need to install that. There were many requests for to add this pytz to the default library for quite some time, but still things are in the process. So if you want to see like where it was installed, as I told you, site packages is the place it will be installed. Next, once you have installed this pytz, till now you know datetime.now or UTC now. If I say UTC now, at the current time, what would be the UTC time it will give? As I'm not executing, I'm not getting the correct time, but like it's the whole time. So UTC, what would used to be the time that you got? Now, it don't have a time zone information. If you do .tz info, did you see it is saying none? Means you don't have that value. So now if I say time zone pytz.time zone of UTC, now I created a localized native time zones. Means time zone object I created, especially for UTC time. Now for the UTC time zone, I am doing dot localize of the given datetime object. Localize means, so within that, if you pass any datetime object, it will treat that as this particular time zone. I have given like UTC right now. So UTC.localize means it treats that, okay, this time zone is of UTC. That's why when you're printing, did you see that you got +00? Because for UTC, you will not add anything. So hope you know how the time zones work. So for the positive and negative side, we need to go. So time zones, if I go, so generally not, so time zones map, if you see, all the time zones will be like this. So the world is like a complete globe. So somewhere they should have a reference. That's where they have chosen like, so UK is the default, Greenwich time. That's where they say Greenwich time or UTC time. So from there, everything is a reference. So if you go before that, you should do like, plus, because sun will come first this side, right? So to the east. So for the this side, you need to add. For the, so going west, you need to so subtract. So every time zone. So that is the reason by default it would be like +00. And if I say UTC, so if you say dot time zone right now, it is a UTC. Means by default this datetime object will not have. You need to first create the pytz time zone for a particular location, and we need to localize our datetime. Similarly, if I want to do for the Paris, Europe/Paris, so for that I need to create like this and dot localize of this one. So localize and normalize. Observe very different. Okay. Localize and normalize. Localize means what? So it will treat whatever the datetime object as that particular time zone. And that's how you have created this UTC now. Now this is a having some time zone information also. Once you have a time zone information, then you can convert to another time zone. For converting from one time zone to another, if you have a datetime object which has a time zone information, then you can use normalize. Observe again, time say localize means it will not change the time. It will treat the same time as it's and add the time zone. Whereas normalize means it will change. Observe carefully. So here it was like 1730. So did you see it was like 1930? So means like normalize will so change the time based upon the time zone. Similarly, if I say America, New York, so it will try to change to that thing. So if I say normalize, it will try to convert that to that other time. So that is the difference between localize and normalize. Similarly, if I give America/Los Angeles. So, sir, like this, why I should give only Los Angeles? In America, there can be other cities also. Means if you want to know all the time zones, pytz dot all time zones, if you give, you will have a list of all. Why did this kind of weird logic? Just I need to get 4 values side by side, such that it would be like better space consumption. That's it, nothing more. In every continent, so there will be things we need to see which one to go. So who decides this, sir? There is a global body for this time zone management. So they will do under the UN, there is one chapter. So for the telecommunications, so they will do that. And similarly, if you say Asia/Kolkata, you get to that. And it normalize, it converted to the corresponding time zone. Similarly, so there are different examples which I give, how to do localize, normalize, and all these things. So next thing, there were many problems which I solved here in the process. This is the most common question you get like in interviews. If for a given date, tell the week of the day. So this is the most common. So if you give like some local day, so whatever the time zone is, if I have, and if I say today, so date dot time dot, sorry, datetime dot date dot weekday. So basically how it works is like, if you give any date, it will give what is the number of it. Let me take this example. So I can do like a import date time. Okay. And I can do the same thing. Say today is equal to date time dot date time dot now. Don't you think like it is very weird every time your date time dot date time like that? So we can reduce that afterwards also. But if you see what is today, you got it. Now, if I say date time dot date dot weekday of, so today is the date time object I have. If I pass, it is saying 5. Sir, why it is giving 5? Means it has like a preferred syntax. From Monday onwards, if you see, Monday starts with a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So today is what? Saturday, which is 5. So that's why you get 5. So based upon that, you can do it for any date. If you want to know week of the day, this is how. If you say like, hey, what 1947, August 15th, what is the week of the day? You need not worry. You need to just create the date, right? I told how do you create the date time? Datetime dot datetime. So datetime dot datetime. Remember it is datetime dot datetime. Yeah. So datetime. Yes. If you want to create a custom date, yeah. So datetime dot time or like datetime dot time. Yeah. Datetime dot datetime directly. So if you specify here itself, whatever it is, say 1947, 1947, August is 8 and like 15. So this should be the default format, year, month, hours. This is something called as ISO format. So that's why they go in this order only. So like that, you got it. So I can say like, um, past date. I can give like past date is something. So now if I say date time dot date time, sorry, date dot weekday of that particular past date. Now you got like 4. Means what? It is on a Friday. So you got it right. So like that, it's gonna work for all. Apart from this, so I think like there were like many other examples on the date time to walk through. So the most last important thing is on the calendar module. So if I say about the calendar, so calendar is mainly into the calendar related things. You might have seen already the calendar right now, but there is one more thing so that I want to mention. So same like this here. So in the datetime calendar module also, we have a lot of operations. But these were explicitly for the calendar related things. So with a calendar, what you want to do? What is the epoch time? So standard. So what is the epoch date it is giving? What is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? Just now I told, right? The same numberings. And also you see month days. This is very interesting. So for January, February, March, April, for everything, ignoring the zeroth value, these are will say January, how many days? February, March, and all these things. Typically, it will be like this. But so if you go for like a leap year, this value will change. That also it will show. And also, if you want the week headers, it will give. What is this 2 sir means? So same Monday to Friday, Saturday. So all the things Sunday, but 2 digits. If I want like 3 digits, 4 digits, basically I can give. So if I give 6, 10, 50 also, it will give maximum like this. So don't worry about that. And the same problem which I solved earlier, which I'm solving here also. I'm taking some date time. So somehow I'm splitting and trying to get the values. And if I want to get, so once I get this month, year, and date individually, I can pass to calendar.weekday of directly. So earlier what you did, you created a date time object first, and then you pass it like weekday. So instead of that, you can directly pass to it. It will give the week number. So, and you can get it. So similarly, so if you want to get the month, see here, I want to get the calendar of a particular month. So as print only can do better. If I do a print statement, you can see. So this is the calendar of like, so August 1947. So this is the calendar of like 2020 August. So similarly, getting the number of days in a month. So if you want to see how many weekdays and others, everything you can calculate. Typical calendar operations, everything you can see. The month range, if I say, how many weeks are there in that particular month? Sir, every month will have 4 weeks only, right? That's not the case. If you see in this case example, how many weeks are there in this month? So typically 4. And apart from this month is also 1 week. This also is there, right? So we should call it as like 6 weeks are there. Means how much it is span. So that's what I mean to say. So similarly, see, that's what if you say date range, it says 6 and 31. So this month has 31 days, but it is spanning on 6 weeks. So like that. If you want like the calendar to be displayed in a different strategies, you can specify. So if you want the entire calendar, you can specify that. So if I give. And similarly, if you want to say first weekday, by default, the first weekday is like 0. That's what you know. But if you want to set the first weekday as something else, sir, why you want to change? Means very simple. If you see in India, so Sunday they consider as auspicious to the starting day. If you go for the Gulf, they consider Friday as the starting day. So if you go for some other countries, they say Monday as the starting day. So the culture and place differs, right? So if you want to explicitly change that, you can give that. If you see here in this case, so when I set that differently, there is something called a set first weekday is equal to 4. 4 means Friday. The moment I set, if I ask what is the first weekday, it says Friday. Now, if I ask to give the 1947 calendar, did you see you got 1947 all calendar, but the dates won't change. The order in which they are coming are changing. Did you see? First Friday, then Saturday, Sunday, Monday, like this. So, and similarly, if you want a text calendar or the calendar in a different formats, all those things you can use. So there are different ways. Sometimes if you want HTML calendar or explicitly, see here, you are passing text calendar of calendar.friday. So the same calendar you are getting from Friday as a starting. Or if you want to do localizing, so there is a very beautiful kind of things. So if you are in Windows, you need to do like this and see, these are all the things we need to consider. There are different languages. If I say English, you got like this. This is some different Cantonese language. So, and this is like Vietnamese. So like that, this is like Russian or like some other languages. I don't, Swahili, I guess, Swahili. So there are different languages like that you can get. And similarly, if you want to check whether something is a leap year or not, this is how you check. And if you want to get the leap days between 2 years, so you can give the limit. How many leap days means those many leap years, right? So you will get. Similarly, if you want to work with the random values, there are two modules called as a random module and the other one is secrets module. Generally, whenever you're doing a random value, are you using for the security related things is the first question. Or simply if you want to do as part of your program, generating a random value or like getting a random number from within the list or something like that you can go for a typical random. But if you are working on cryptographic purposes, like encryptions or sensitive data hiding and others, they should go for the secret module. Both will have the similar kinds of functionalities, APIs, but it is for a different purpose. And the second question that you get most often is like, what is the algorithm used in the random things? Generally, most of the languages these days, so Java or Go language or Python, they follow the same thing. This is called as Mersenne twister algorithm. What do you mean by this Mersenne twister algorithm means? So there are different ways in terms of generating random number, different algorithms. So this is what like most of them follow. If you want to go further, you can just go through, but this is what you need to understand. And the second question that you need to remember is, what is the algorithm used for sorting in Python? There are like different sorting methods like bubble sort, tim sort, and others. But Python goes with a concept called a tim sort. So for random, it is a Mersenne twister algorithm. So, and now in terms of algorithm, it has a lot of operations. So if you see, but the basic, what we can do is, first we can generate a random number. If you want to generate a random number between 0 and 1, you can do random.random. You will generate a random number. And you see it is a floating number. So floating point with 16 decimals. So that's a default thing. Sir, if you generate again, you get one more thing. If you generate again, you get one more thing. Sir, I don't want values between 0 and 100, sorry, 0 and 1, but I want something more. Then if you want, you need to multiply with 100 or like 10. So till how much maximum range you want, you multiply till that number. So if you see into 100 means like it will move 2 decimals, right? So like that you got it. So 6 points. So if I multiply into this one, I got like 77 also. So like that you can get like a floating point values. But sir, there is one interesting point. See here, I'm mentioning these are like pseudo random numbers. What do you mean by pseudo random and randomness? This is what the most common confusion. Here, do you know that why this number is coming? No, it coming randomly. Do you know why this number came? It came randomly. But can you make a prediction of what number to come next? Then how can you call it as a random number, sir? Yes, that's what the point. So there is something called as seed. Every random number generating algorithm will take some input. If you don't give any input, it may take the current time or the date and time. Like that, they can go. It depends upon the algorithm. But if you give an explicitly seed, means to some value, next values will be in a particular pattern. We cannot identify, so we cannot make that do. But why it is called pseudo-random means, if you see, if I generate a number, seed, and subsequently if you ask, let me do the same thing again here in the terminal. If I go for IPython, and if I ask like import random, and generally if I say random dot random, I get like random value, which I don't even know what happens. But if I give like random dot seed of what is this number, I'm just giving some random number as a seed. Then subsequently, if you see, if I just ask random dot random, did you see that after that first number is exactly same? If I give one more, did you see the second number is exactly same? So, and again, if I give, did you see the third number is exactly same? So then if I give like a different seed, so the subsequent values will be the same, similar. Means we cannot predict what will happen next. But if you give a particular seed, next subsequent values will follow a particular pattern. So that's what is called a pseudo randomness. They are by default not random. So we can predict also. That's what called as pseudos. If you want to make it much more explicit, where people cannot recognize what would be the next value, then take a seed which no one can understand. So no one can predict. So like that, we can take something which is very unique. And like, so that is what you need to take. And if I say this particular string, I don't know what is the string, some random string I took. And if I pass on this, and if I print the values, did you see next subsequent values will follow the same pattern? So if you want it much more unpredictable, they say like, we can use this one. Hope you remember in the OS module, I told urand. So means Unicodes, that much random size Unicodes. If I give 1024, 1024 bytes will be created. It's a very big thing, right? So that one, if you pass like a seed, that's it. So you cannot recognize, right? It becomes a truly comparatively better random number because we cannot predict what is this value every time what is generating. So that's why it also works. Now, did you see indirectly or directly, you are using OS and sys module, every module? So that's why I need to say that is a heart. And similarly, how to get the random number between 0 and 100. Till now, you know that for a typical random number, you can multiply with 100 such that you get the values. But did you see it is a floating point value? So, but by default, if you generate, if you want between some limit, you can give like this. This is called as randint, means you get an integer between the given limits, say 1 to 100. Similarly, if I give 1 to 100, you get the values. Similarly, if I say a randint of minus 71 to 100, between that you got some random values, right? If I do for 10 times, I'm getting 10 values. And see, some of them are negative values. That's how it works. Now, similarly, so apart from and one more interesting point, these random values, when they're generating between two bounds, they will include even the upper bound also. This is very, very strange. Till now, whenever you're using any boundary conditions in Python, like in the range or in the slicing operation, etc., it will go till the last value, but doesn't include the last value, right? But random is like one exception. It will include even the last value also. And similarly, randint, there is the third one called as uniform. Means between these given boundaries, you get a value, but it will be floating point value. So instead of random dot random, you can do like uniform. So how different is like means, if you know about the random number generation concepts, there is something called as uniform distribution. Uniform distribution. Uniform distribution means Over a period of time, if you see all the values, so it will try to have a particular mean. Means most values will be tending to be in this curve. So most values will be in the middle, try to make. So this is called as uniform distribution. So that uniform distribution, it follows. So, but you get like a floating point values between the given limits. Similarly, there is another interesting thing. Typically, if I ask, hey, give me the range of values, range of 0 to 21 with a step of 3. By default, you get, it's a lazy loading object, you won't get the values. But if you convert to list, then you can see. This is what it happens, right? Now, the point is, I want to use something called as random.rand range. Random.rand range of, if I give these things, it will first generate this sequence. Within this sequence only, it will give one value. Did you see every time the values which are generating will be one within them only? It is not something very random. Partly within that only you will get it. See how interesting? Similarly, like rand range, there is another thing like random.choice. This is another interesting thing. If I have some list of values and if you want to get one value at a time, so I am looping for 10 times so that each time I want to check what is getting. Did you see within the given values, if you want one value explicitly, you can give like this. Rand range means you have a pattern, it will generate that pattern. Within that value, it will check. But random.choice means you need to give the list of values or any iterable of values. It will choose one among them. Similarly, there is one more thing. So every time if you want only one value, you need to go for choice. But if you want a different number of values, then you need to go for something called a sample. Sample, by default, if I say first 0 values I want, it gives nothing. So if I say, hey, I want one value, it is giving. If I give 2 values, I got 2 values, 3 values, 4 values. But the beauty is like, so sample will give a distinct values. Whereas to compare, if you see the same list, if I take same items I have, So if I do like a random dot choice of, so these items, no matter how many times you ask, it will give only one value. But if they do the same thing for a sample, so it is saying like I required one more object, saying like how many values you want. If I say 0, it will give nothing. If I say like 3 or 4, I'll get the 4 values. But did you see in those 4 values, there is nothing repetition? And if I say how many values are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If I say 7 right now, I get all 7 values, but in a random order. So if I say like, 8, will I get it? It will throw an error that, hey, you increase the population size. I cannot give you. Let me take one more example. For the same items, what if I have all values which are duplicate, like 1, so 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Assume I have like this. Now, if I do random dot choice of these values, say 4. So I got what? 4 values, which is repetition, right? Means within these elements, if there is a repetition, it can do nothing. It will give the values, but it tries not to give a duplicate. Means for a given position value, it will come only one time, like that. So hope you understood the edge cases. Similarly, if there is something called a shuffle. So random dot giving the same value will be different. See here, there were some mountains. You want to plan for a trip. Then if you want to get the values in shuffled, you can do like a random dot shuffle of the given mountains. If you see, it will shuffle it. If you now ask, hey, what are the mountains? So the same values will change. So did you see that it is doing an in-place changes? Okay, good, sir. Can I take like a list and do this change? Yes. Can I take like a tuple and do the change? Let's see. If I do like a tuple and if I ask a random dot shuffle of thing, what is saying? It is throwing an error. Means I can pick only mutable objects. If you give immutables, I cannot do because it will do in-place changes. Shuffle. So if you ask mountains, it will give the values. Fine. And similarly, can we do the same thing with random dot sample? Yes. Random dot sample of, you give the same mountains, but you need to give the same length. So what is the length of mountains? You need to give that. If you give that, did you see you got the values? Again in a random fashion. Again in a random fashion. So the same thing can be done with a random dot shuffle or random dot sample of this one. In fact, random dot shuffle is doing the same thing in the backend. So fine. If you have card games, if you want to shuffle them, you can use, or anything you can do. Some random jokers. Did you see that the card methods I have did? Random dot set and all. You can go through this code, you will understand. So, and this is the most common example. If I have a coin, if I'm tossing for n number of times, what is the probability that I'll get head or a tail? See what I did? I took like a dictionary and I'm asking these key values and I'm taking random dot choice. Why here I choose choice? Here I took like, sample. Because if you explicitly want a single value, go for choice. If you want all the things or any specific things, you go for a sample. So, but if you do random dot sample of a single value, so if I say like, I want a one value, the one value will get in a list of values. Observe carefully. But if I do the same thing with a choice, so choice will get like individual value. It will not give the list. Observe the difference. So choice will anytime give the individual object. Whereas sample, even if you ask one value, it will give in a list. So like that, if I did, so I got the choice, right? So did you see that it is around the 50% mark? So typically, a good random number means it will have like 50% probability. If there are two things, the probability should be 50% exactly. So here it is like 50.3 or something. So that's a difference. Next, this is a very good example how I did like a random name generator. If you go for any gaming app, how they generate a random name for you? So they will ask like, hey, whether you are a male or female, and they generate your region based on. So they will have a database of what are the first names, last names based on the region. Then they will just generate. So generally last names will be same for both male and female. For first names, it may change, right? So they will have like a first names, male first names, female first names, or like Asian male first names, like that they will store. So whenever you are giving your details based upon that, it is generating. So I have written a code, very good, interesting. So how it will take the list of values and generating this one. Now this one you slightly modify. You take the input from the user that, hey, what is the region they belong to, whether they are so male or female. And so based upon that, you generate the names. So you slightly modify this logic by adding more. So, and similarly, one more assignment. Yeah, you are asked to, for the gender you need to pass, and you need to give the gender names correspondingly. So means you need to have male name separately, female name separately, first names. But last name is the same. That's what you need to add. Similarly, I wrote logic for the password generator. In fact, there is no one algorithm for password generator. If someone knows your algorithm, that's it, right? You are caught. So random number is, sorry, password generation is very unique. You can do in your own way. I did see what? Random.rand length of this one I'm saying, rand range. It will generate random values that much and it will get the values. And you are getting some value. So I can do any logic. I just gave one logic. Similarly, this is a much more clean logic. I took like strings.ascii, strings.digit, strings.punctuation. All of them I combined, and I combined together. Within those characters, I want to extract some values. I have taken like that. So if I do like this, I will get, or if I say import string is a module. If I say characters equal to so and so, if I ask, hey, what are the characters? It will give the entire characters. In those things, I want values between 8 and 16 digit. So that's how you are generating a value, rand range, and you are taking. So the same thing can be done in different ways. If I say the same thing, till now what you did, random.sample. If we say random dot sample of 7-digit, so I got a 7-digit thing. And if you, as you are getting a list of strings, you can do delimiter dot join of this one so that you get a random thing. So if I generate again now, I got the things right. So if you want to make more conditions also, you can do. So here I do in a very simple logic. Here I do like some more complex logic. Here furthermore big complex logic. So these are like various use cases for you. And also to understand, if you know more about the randomness, there is something called as Gaussian distribution. So till now I told uniform distribution. Similarly, there is something called as Gaussian distribution. Gaussian distribution. So you can see here. So you can see the difference. So Gaussian and uniform distributions and how the things works if you are interested further. But for a typical Python developer, it is not mandatory, but just giving you an example. So next further, similarly, you have like the secrets module. Secrets module is, as I told, especially when you are working with the secrets, you can go for the IPUI. And secrets module also have the same features. They introduced it lately. So to make it more adaptable, they made the same kind of things in terms of all the attributes and others. You see, secrets, if you see, the same thing you will get. And same choice, same sample, everything will be there. So, but it is done slightly different. If I say random dot choice of, I gave a string, it gave a single character among it. Similarly, rand below. These were like the extra features. That's why the same features I'm not explaining. Others, if you see, rand below 8, if I say, it will give some value randomly below 8 from 0 onwards till that given value. If you say -1, it will not do, just to say. So random below 8 means it will give some value. Random below 90 means from 0 to 90, any value it will give. Random dot rand bits. So it will generate the bits. Return an integer with k random bits. So with how many? So 149 you got. So means like till max 8 bits you can get. 8 bits means you can form a very big number, right? So 7 bits lanes, 127. So 8 bits means 256. Till 256 values you can generate. Similarly, token byte. So if you want like token bytes, how many bytes you can specify? Those many bytes it will generate. So hexadecimal, if you want to generate, you can give. Or like tokens URL safe. Generally, this is useful whenever you want to generate. A simple example I can give. Let's say you will get some URL. So say email saying that to password reset. Whenever you're doing a password reset, you will get a link we need to click. When you click that link, along with the code, it will give some random hash and others. So those how they are generated means like this only. Token URL safe means what? The token which was generated is safe for URL. What do you mean by safe for URL? Generally, if you go for any URL, when you are generating, if you pass between certain characters, if let's say white spaces and others are there, when they are processing, they will add a plus operation or they will change it. Means if you say white space is not a URL safe. So like that, certain characters will not be there. So to make it safe, it will generate only URL safe characters. Similarly, if you want to generate like system random, randint, so rand range, uniforms, so all these things you have seen, sample and others. So the main things which are not there and unique, I explained. So remaining is also like that. So similarly, like random module, you have the next thing, which is into collections. So this is another interesting module about the collections. So in collections, what do you mean by collections means? It is mainly for the third-party module only. So earlier it is an outside. They'll later include it into the main one. So what it does to say, it will help in the most of the things. If you remember, we already worked on collections module a couple of times. If you remember, when we are working on the tuples, I told something called as named tuple. Also, when we worked with dictionaries, I told like default dict. So this, and apart from that, there are other terms also. So if it see there, the first thing is called as counter. So in real life, it is very much useful for you. Hope you remember, I told the concept of frequency handling. You remember? I gave an assignment for calculating the frequency of each of the characters within a given string. So typically you did like this only, right? If you have these many characters, if you want to check each character, how much times it came, you could took a dictionary. Each time you are taking the default value and like you are incrementing it. Finally, you got this result that A is occurring this much time, B is occurring this much time, C is occurring this much time. But if you want the same thing in a very short way, you can pass that iterable to the counter. Then counter will create like a dictionary kind of object. In fact, if you want like a dictionary, you can convert to dictionary also. But did you see the same values you got, right? A for 2 times, B for 3 times, C for 1 time. So, and also it retains the order in which you gave the values. And if you see, if you give one more example, if I have Python programming, I want to check each character how much time it is taking, frequency. So instead of doing that much logic, I passed to programming. So it will give the same things, P 2 times, Y 1 time, like that. That's interesting. And similarly, if I pass a dictionary itself, what will happen? The same dictionary will come. And if I pass the values like a key equal to value, then also it will create a dictionary. Or if I go for some complex example, if you see in this case, I have a tuple of tuples. So in this, if you see, so the first names are repeated twice, right? So if I say Ali is coming twice, Arhan once, Ahmad once, Yasub is coming twice. In the same fashion, in terms of the values, so here in this tuple of first value, so you can see yellow is occurring twice, so blue is occurring once, green once, red once, silver once. So there were some repetitions. If you want these values, so did you see here? If I pass the counter of these colors, you see everyone is coming only once. Means this in terms of combinations, everyone didn't repeat. So, but individually they were repeating. So that's the reason if I pass like this, it will say like this. But within that, if I go only for the colors, within those colors, I'm not interested in the names, only in the names, let's say. So then I got like this, right? So if I pass this one, then I'll get like each name, how much time it occurs. Similarly, if I pass only colors, each color, how much time it occurs. So this is all about collections.counter. Similarly, if you want a custom counter, means you don't get the values ready-made. In real time or in for loop, you get every time values. Based upon that, you need to increment the counter. Then you can create an initial container or counter, sorry. And for that, you can update the values. See, it is similar to the way that you do update for a dictionary, right? So here also you do update. Then again, I am doing an update. See, initially it has nothing. Whatever you give, the same thing it will come. Subsequently, if I update, did you see? Generally, if you go for a dictionary, for a given dictionary, if you do an update, if the same key is present, the value will be replaced, right? Earlier, the value is 3. So now the value gave 1. So you expect A to be having a value of 1. But did you see what happened here? The counter, instead of replacing the values, it will increment the values. Means earlier the A is 3, now A is 1. So total it will become 4. It gave him 4. And also when you create an initial counter and slowly add the values, did you see the order is also different? They are coming in a descending order of their frequencies. So that is the difference. If you give all at one shot, it will retain the order. But if you give one after the other by initially creating separately, then it will give in the descending order based on their frequency. And similarly, if I say one more counter, directly I'm passing all the values. Did you see? So I got the values. So like that. Next, if I go for the counter, same like dictionary, it also have all attributes like dot elements, dot values, all these things. And similarly, one more thing is, Yeah, character frequency analysis. You remember? So here what I'm doing, I'm taking a text file, and for this entire text file, this is a Python license file. So I took like a hard coding, but you can take any text file. So this is how I read a file with open of open is the built-in function I told, and you pass the path, and you should specify I want to read. So it will read that file, and if I say f.read, it will read the entire content. And I am passing like c.update of this entire string. Then you not only just getting the total number of frequencies, I'm not interested in the total characters. But if I'm interested in the top 5 or top 6 occurring characters, then you can say most common. This is another attribute for the counters. Did you see now the most occurring top 5 you got? White space is the most occurring in any string, obviously. Then so ovals will be there, right? E is the most occurring, followed by T, like that, so and so. So different operations I showed you. So counter, I told you that if you take two counters, and if we can do even combining them also. If you combine two counters, the values will be correspondingly added. If you see initially, A value is what? 2. Here A value is 2. So when you combine, A value became 4. Similarly, when you do subtraction, so it will subtract from the first value. Every time the same thing. From the first value, what is common between first and second. So it will not give the values of the rest in the second. So like that. So from the first, it has only 3 values. So you are subtracting. So let's say B is there. B is for like 3 times. Here B is for 1 time. So 3 minus 1 is 2. That's the reason B became 2. Similarly, it has A is 2 times. Here A is 2 times. So it was removed. Did you see? And similarly, C is for 1 time here. And C is not there at all. So you got like C is equal to 1. So that's how it works. And similarly, you can do intersection, union, all operations. And the next thing I told is about default dict. Default dict is also called as factory design pattern. Default dict, if you want to create a dictionary, you remember, so whenever you're looping over the dictionary in this standard problem, I told that initially it don't have a value. So we need to take a default value and then you do. For that, I told in a different ways, either like this or using set default or like that differently, right? But every time doing this operation is a difficult thing. So that's why you do set default. Even if you don't want to do set default also, you can go for default dict. Default dict, what it does is that whenever if you are referring for any key which is not there, it will throw a key error, right? But default dict, if you create for the dictionary, if you ask for any key, it will not throw any error. So it will create the default value, which is list. So what is the value type that you are giving? Not the key. So if you see here, I created a default dict of list. So it will create a dictionary only. Same like an ordinary dictionary. But did you see here, I am not considering at all whether it has already the key or not. No set default, no in a different ways. Simply, I'm just, referring to that and using that's it. So then automatically it will create. Did you see, as I created a default dict of list, the values are all lists. As it is a list, I can do a just append operation. Similarly, I can do a default dict of set. As it is a set, we cannot do append, but add operation. That's why if you see, the outputs, the values are all sets. Similarly, sir, if I go for integer, that also we can do, but tuple we cannot go. Because if you create a tuple, we cannot add the values, right? Then there is no point. So that's why tuple we cannot create. Only mutable things you need to pass are the basic integer. So why integer is there is, it's like a counter. You remember the earlier counter? Each word, how many times you occurred, you want to see. So this is how you do, right? As I did like a default dict of int, the default value will be 0. You need not even worry about it. So it will create. It is same like using the collections.counter. So if you pass default dict of int, so both are same. So that's why you seldom see people using default dict of int, because they can directly use counter, right? So that's what. Similarly, if you do default dict of float, you get like the integers in a floating point value. So like that, you can go for different options. And the next interesting thing is about the DQ. So DQ is like mainly into the queuing mechanism. Hope you know the queue mechanism, right? So queue operations, queue mechanism. Queue mechanism means what? Generally, so first in, first out. So whoever comes first, so those will go first. So typically for a queue, you input in one side, output in the other side, right? That is how it works. But DQ is something different. DQ means like, so same like a queue, but with a slight difference. DQ mechanism means, so you can do in the left side also, right side also. Did you see? From the front also you can insert and remove, right also you can insert and remove. This is very interesting. So for that we have operations. If I create a DQ, it is similar to an ordinary list. It is mutable, but it has both operations. Till now we know append operation, right? Append will already every time add in the right side. So that's what you can see, what are you have added. Similarly, we can do append left also. That is very interesting. If I do append left of 6, did you see it was added in the left? Similarly, if I do pop, pop means every time it will remove in the last. If you don't give, it will remove the last value. But if you give a specific thing, it will remove in the particular location. Similarly, you have pop left also. Pop left will remove from the left side. When it is removing also, give the values. So that is the unique things of it. So it is more than an ordinary list, but with extra operations like this. And you can also check for the count or any other list operations. Generally for remove, all list operations will be there. Similarly, extend is there, right? Extend by default extends to the right side. Similarly, you have extend left. Don't ask extend right, because extend itself will does in the left, right side. And on top, you can do rotate. Rotate is very interesting. Rotate means like, so it will take the values and it will shift the positions. Did you observe that I am rotating by -3? So -3 means, you see here, these three values will go to the last. Did you see? So just imagine like in a rotation. If I do minus, it will go in this direction. So which are the last values? Left side values go to the right. If I say rotate in the plus direction, it will go in this direction. And similarly, I can do reverse. So all these operations you can do on a DQ. Even insert also we can do. Insert don't need a direction, right? It is, you can specify a particular thing. And similarly, I told about named tuple. So we already discussed about named tuple. It's same like a tuple. So, but the difference is we not only refer with the positions, but we can also refer with their names. So whenever you want a named things, you go for a named tuple. Mostly, I prefer to go for named tuple because it is less weight and it is fast because it's a tuple compared to a dictionary. So whenever I'm doing for a dictionary, or sorry, let's say I have a database connection where I want to update some values or upsert some values. Instead of doing a tuple, I will go for a named tuple. Then it is much more reliable and do. It will go to the particular thing and it will populate. And there are like many other operations you can see. So named tuples, I told all, I need not touch again. So we can, from the named tuple, we can get to a dictionary or like a tuple extract, we can extract. And this is also an old thing, order dict. Hope you remember the dictionaries will retain the order you gave. It's not ascending or descending, but what are the order? Let's say if I define like this, it will come in the output also in the same way. But if you define the same thing in a Python 2, it will not do the same. So Python 2 dictionaries will not retain their order. In Python 3, from 3.6 onwards, the dictionaries will retain the order in which you give. But earlier it used to not retain. In those cases, they used to go for order dict module and do it. Now these people, what did they did? They use the same order dict, collections order dict in the backend. So the same logic. That's why we don't even need this one. It is now redundant, I would say. So from 3.6 onwards, it's not needed. So this is all about the collections module. Similarly, if I go further, next we can touch base on atexit, which is a very small module. So at exit, what we need to do? I think it's done. Now coming to the next interesting module, which is called as atexit. Import atexit. You should call it as atexit. By the name itself, it is saying that during exit, it will do something. What do you mean by exit and what it does? Means whenever you are leaving a program, so if you want some action to be done, they can help. Let's say I have some functions, so I want to execute. Typically, if I say, I can ignore this one. Yeah, I have written one hello function, some addition function, some all done function. Like that, I have three functions. Now I need to register these functions to this one. Say like I have written like this. Initially, I'm printing registering, then like a registered. Between that, I'm saying at exit dot register of all done. Means this function I'm returning registering. If I execute this particular function, what will happen? So clear and Python 01 so and so. Did you see that it is saying initially registered, then registered, then it is saying all done. So why this all done function is called in the last? That's the question, right? Now let me make a call to the hello function now. Hello is a function which I have. Now I'm making a call to this function. Now what is happening? Did you observe? So first a registering function is called. So this print is turned. Then it is registering. Then this print is coming. That's what you could see. But this all done is not executed. Then I have hello. So the hello world is executed. Finally, before closing the things, so all done is executed. Means what are you registered as at exit? So that function will be executing in the last. Similarly, if I explicitly ask this all done function, then what will happen? So you explicitly call, then it will execute, but still at the end of the things, it will execute again. Say if I comment this one, and instead of that, I do this my add function. I have an addition function which is doing something, right? It is returning. If I execute right now, did you see now? So registering happened, then it registers, then registered is printing, then hello world is executing, then your addition function logic is executing and printing, then all done is executing. Means whatever the logic you write, it will execute all the things, but the registered function will execute in the last. So this is what we learned. Let me go for one more example. So say this is in the question. Okay. Yeah. If I go for the next example. So this time I want to do something interesting. Say I have written like this. You see, I have written a small cleanup function. And this function is taking some arguments also, unlike the previous one. This time I'm registering it. When I'm registering, I'm passing that argument also. When it takes some argument, we need to pass. When I'm registering, did you see I showed first, second, third? That is how I'm registering. Now, if I execute this statement, I have an exception, but it was commented, leave it. But if I execute this one, CLS clear and Python 02, did you see what happened now? Yeah. When it is registering as first, second, and third, it is executing like a stack in a last in, first out. Whichever is last registered, that was executed first. Means you can have n number of functions of your logic, but in the last only at exit functions will execute. But when executing also, they will execute in this order. Okay. But so earlier we don't have an exception. It is just like an ordinary statement. But now if I have this exception, Generally, exception means what? It will break the code, right? But when you execute this one, even when exception is coming, the code was broken. In that case also, you got like this. You see? So it is handling this. After exception came, then these cleanup functions are executed before this stopping the things. So how strange it is. So fine, right? So similarly, now the assignment for you is like create a function for getting the trace back of the exception and storing. So it should be registered. It should be registered to atexit. See how it is working. So take that as an assignment. Okay. So, and the next example I want to bring to your notice is in the same fashion, if I register the same things, say here in this case, these are all callbacks. So outside, if I do a exception, it worked, right? But you have registered a function. That function itself is throwing an exception. This is the third case. Now, in this case also, you can see that it works. But how it is seen? Did you observe? Every time when you are calling, it is throwing a call. See, it is breaking the things, raising the message. So the first one executed and it has raised an exception. As I told you, it will do in a reverse order. Did you see that registered message runtime? Means the second one executed first, then the first one executed. And if I give like one more, it works in the same way. Third. So it will execute everything. Maybe like I'll give one /n, because after the execution, it will go to the new line, right? Just to help us. /n. If I execute right now, did you see? The same things with a slight space. So now it is more clearly visible. So even within the here also, if there is an exception, it will work. So now another thought is like, whenever you have a time, execute a function which will execute for infinite amount of times. So take that as an assignment. Create a function where with while loop, code executes infinite times. Okay, it will not continuously do, right? So for that, now you register and do a control C. When a program is running, if you see control C, it will break the code, right? And see if the atexit is helpful. So sometimes if you want to intentionally stop, so using a control C, in that case, how it is working, you can see. So that is an assignment for you. And the next thing, so like modules, so at atexit, the real-time use cases will be about the py.env. So py.env means like this is the most common use these days. Generally, you know about the concept of environment variables, which we discussed very clearly. So if I do environment variables, if I go for IPython or like directly, I can say like import os dot environ. If I say, so I'll get the list of all the environment variables. And if I say environ dot keys, if I give, as it's like a dictionary, I'll get all the keys individually. And if I want to print them for each in so and so, if I want like print each, you can see all the keys, right, of the environment variables. But sir, if you have a program where in that program, if you want some values to be like a environment variables, but the point is like every time the users cannot set the environment variables. You want to pass like a function and you want to use. So then how to use it? So for that, we need to go with something called as py.env. This is a third-party module. It will not come by default. We need to install it. So if I say here, exit, okay, Python, so .env module. So if you see, did you see that? From now you will understand that sometimes the module that you are installing and the usage will be different. If you want to install this, you can just give this command, it will execute. You know, pip install -u means what? If it is already installed, then upgrade it. Then what is this user? You are telling that install this for the current user only. Sometimes you don't have an limited permission like an admin. So you can use that. So what it is saying, it has downloaded a py.env. But when you are importing it, you should not import with that name, but you should import with this name, .env. So why did it happen? Maybe sometimes what happens is like the first person who is contributing in the open source, they might have done, but they will not give any updates, but they will not support. So they might have involved in something else. They will not give to the community. Then community will start with the similar name with a slight modifications. So that's how these things evolve. So what is this .env doing? So basically, it will check for the environment variables in any of the places. So in the current directory, by default, it will check for this one. If I say clear and Python, execute, I'm saying like find.env. Basically, it recognizes any .env file in the current directory. In the current directory means here, I have never created anything, right? If you see here, there is no environment variables. If I say ls-la, list all including hidden files, there is nothing is there. Now, if I want to create something like a .env in the current directory or one directory above or two directories above, we can create. If I just create one and I didn't add anything, so if I say clear and ask, did you see it is saying that, hey, you have a .env file? So like that, it will find the environment variable file. So if you have in a different folder, the env file, you can explicitly give .env.load so and so. Explicitly, you can specify. So, but if I have that in a particular path, I can give that particular path things also. If I give that explicitly path, I can give like this. You see, I have like a path .env means current directory. In current directory, I have .env and I'm doing that to this path and I'm saying .load.env. In fact, you don't even need all these things if you place this .env in the current directory. So if you have in a separate place, you can explicitly pass. Then after doing that, let's say I'm asking for some environment variables. So you can get it. Generally, every time when you're doing, we cannot set the environment variable. That would be very difficult. So if I ask these environment variables, did you see that it is saying none? All of the values are none. Because neither in the operating system nor here, these environment variables are defined. If a environment variable is defined in the operating system, at least that will come. In this .env file, I didn't define anything. If I say some address, a Redis address, if I give, so something, column, some 8,000, like a port I give. Now, if you execute, did you see you got that something equal so and so? As it stores by default the values, you need not give the codes. If I give directly, now did you see? It will automatically get the things like this. And now, if I add this one, meaning of life. So this env file is like a typical thing. I give some value, integer now. I got. So like, multi-line variable, something I give. So true I give, some boolean. I got that it's working. So whatever you place this env file, you will get them. So that is how the env files you need to work. .env. This is like very much useful in your real time, any of the production projects. So the next thing that I want to tell is about the context, contextlib. Contextlib is also a very interesting point. Whenever you want to create your own custom context, we can go with this. So generally, this is not that much useful in real time. If you don't know the context module, I think like context, once you understand, you will understand this better. So let me give with one example to understand how this works. Generally, you know that try, so except, else, and finally were like 4 blocks, right? You can do like a try and finally blocks individually if you know that certain things will not throw any exception. You know, time.sleep will never throw an exception, right? Then what is the point of writing an except? Definitely it will execute. Then why you need to have an else? So in those cases, you can just do a try and finally. So try block, you know, what are the logic you want to execute, it executes. Finally is like a tear down. So what are the action you do? You do the corresponding reverse action. So means what you're doing, here you did like a start. So you got a start time. So and the end in the finally, you are getting the end time and you are calculating the total time taken and you are printing it. So the same thing, if you want to create your own custom context manager, so we need to create like this. So once you go to the classes, you will understand how to do. But typically you need to understand is that this is called as a constructor. So whatever the values you pass, it will take. Then it has a start, it has a stop, it has an enter, it has an exit. So if you have these functions defined, then you can use a new keyword called as with. Using the with, you can just make a call to this class and do. So as you don't know the things until you go with the classes, I'm just briefing it. But when you go to the classes, you can come back again. So you have this one. Individually, instead of you doing the setup, you can just do in one line. So that is about the custom context manager. But just I'm giving a gap so that you will understand afterwards. Similarly, the next thing that we will learn is about the base64 module. So base64 encoding. So many people confuse between encoding and encryptions. What do you mean by encoding? Encoding by the name itself tells, right? So you are the simple thing. Encoding is for like better storage or better transfer. Let's assume that you are doing a house shift. So will you place each of your items in a separate vehicle and pass? It's very difficult, right? You try to place everything in a single van and you pass on. So in terms of transport, you want to do in a better way. Then will you place everyone spaciously or you will place everything very tightly? So for better space, you do, right? So this is encoding is also similar thing you need to think in that lines. Or let's say you have some things in your home. How do you place them? You you place everything in a particular way that in less space you can do very spaciously or like better values. In terms of data also, when storage or for transfer, we cannot do directly. For that, we need to have an encoding scheme. So there are different encoding schemes. The common is like base 64, base 32, base 128, like that. What is this concept of base 64, sir? Base 64 means like it will have totally 64 characters. That includes 26 uppercase, 26 lowercase, 10 numbers, and these 2 symbols. So these are all the characters that you have. Okay. So that is 64 means. So as I told you, it's not an encryption algorithm. If you have any character, every character has its ASCII code, right? That we know till now. Now, if I go to each of these characters and I ask, hey, what is the base 64 encode of that character? By default, you have an ordinary characters, which it will not work. It works with the byte strings. That's why did you see I'm doing an encode. If you have an ordinary string, if you want to convert to byte string, you need to do encode. If you have a byte string, you need to convert to ordinary string, you need to go for decode. You remember yesterday I told you the concept where we worked on sub-process. During sub-process, I told that if you are getting a value, which is a byte string, if you want to convert an ordinary string, you need to decode, right? So here, the reverse. Ordinary string, you convert it to byte string. So that's how you got. Did you see that ordinary character, if you do ORD, you get it ASCII code. But if you do encode, did you see everything is starting with a B to say that it's a byte string? Within the quotes you got, for P, it is replaced like this. And did you see everything is ending with 2 equals? So that is a typical format for base 64 encoding. So you got like, so each character is replaced by 2 characters, something. So now, if I do like this encode of each of the characters, like alphabets, so did you see? From 0 through 128, for all the alphabets I am doing. So numbers and others. Did you see? First characters we cannot print. But if you go subsequently, you will understand. If I go in the text editor, you will see. From where you have numbers, I think like here, right? Did you see? You have like 0. 0 is replaced like this. 1 is replaced like this. Similarly, if I have numbers, A is replaced like this. So B is replaced like this. C is replaced with. So like that, every character can be replaced by the things. But what is common? Everything is ending with a 2 equal symbols. Similarly, if you have already a byte string, see here, instead of encoding, just a string before that, I placed a B. I can convert by encoding it. This is how I encode it. And if this encoded value, if you pass to decode, you again get your own original thing. Similarly, if I do like a dot ASCII, so if I convert and if I do, the same thing happens. Encoding, decoding, encoding, decoding. Similarly, if I have an image, so in IPython, if you want to load an image, this is how you do. IPython.display. So if I do like an import of image, selective import, and I'm taking the image and I'm asking to display. This is the entire image I have. Generally, images, when you are transferring, you try to encode and pass. So if you see here, so I'm reading the file, you remember? So I'm passing this entire context, content into this encoding format, and it is encoding. So this is the entire encoded image. So an image will not go directly, but it will go in terms of the strings. So, and if I copy pasted the same image, see how much content it became. So the videos, audios, everything will be converted like this, multimedia, to the typical encoded strings only. So by seeing it, you may not recognize it's an image, but we need to decode back. So I think like it's a very big thing. So if I go scroll down, yeah. So what I did here is like, I took that entire image and did it like, so encoding it. Encoded image. I'm doing a decoding of that. If I do the decode bytes, I got the image again. If I'm saving that to a decoded image, so PNG file. So now you got it. The same image, right? What are you passed? The same thing you are getting. In the same fashion, when you are generating this encoding, same way what you did in the secrets module. So here also, if you want to generate some random number, it's not like a secret, but something. So like a encoded thing value, if you want to generate, you can do like encoding with a safe encode. So safe encode, URL safe encode, all these things we have here also. So you see, URL safe encode, base64, URL safe decode. So like that we have. So that's it with this base64 module? No. If you go further, like base64, we can do further also. Other attributes also it has. Like base64, base64, base32, base32, base85. So base85, base16, all these things it has. But the default encoding is base32. And you can try with the others like an assignment. Then subsequently, after this one, the last one I want to explain is about the user-defined modules. I think with this, you will understand the clear picture of all the modules and we can stop. So what is this user-defined modules? How they can help us? Generally, you have seen till now a lot of modules. Now you may get a thought like, why can't we create our own module? Of course, you can create your own module. There is nothing stopping us. If you want to create a module, first you need to understand what is a module and how to work. So first, if I want to create something, I want to create like a package. So now you need to understand two things. There will be concept like module, package, and like a framework. So module is a individual Python script only. That's it, right? A Python script can be imported in another Python script. Package means, say, a folder of Python scripts imported together. You can go individually and do, or like together you can do. If you want to create like a package, in that folder, you need to create __init__.py file. You don't do anything, but just you create. So what is a framework? Framework is like, so set of packages, set of such packages means multiple folders you will have and combine for a purpose. Mostly for a specific purpose. They create. So this is what you need to understand at the first thing. If I store like explanation, fine. I think I'm in a different directory. I need to change to that directory. User defined directory. If I say ls, I got only this file. Now I will create some things here. So first I want to work on some package. Till now, you know, individual files, how to do. If I say package, I created a small package. Okay. Within that package, I want to create one module. Say module 1. Module 1.py. I have some function called as hello world. I have some function called as hello world. And if I do like a print of hello world, I get the hello world printed, right? It's a very simple program. I'm doing like this. If you see tree structure, you will see there is one package. Within that, there is a folder. So if I want to execute, how I need to do? I need to go to the directory package. And if I say tree right now, there is only one file. So Python module 1, I executed. I clear the screen. And if I say Python module 1, hello from module 1, it is clear, right? Good. And if I want to import it, so you can have the usage. Say like usage.py. So in the same directory, you have both. If you say tree, did you see in the same directory, you have both. I am saying like Python usage.py. It executes, but you didn't do anything. So to execute, how we need to do? We need to import. If I say as it is in the current directory, import module 1. The same file name I gave like this. If I execute right now, so did you see when I did a usage, when I printed it, did you see that a new PyCache file was created? That is because the bytecodes will be created, as I told you. This is the bytecode, and you cannot read it. It is for the bytecode for the Python. Python only can understand. If the things are in a local directory, you can import. But did you see, observe carefully that in this particular program, I am not executing the module 1 code. I am doing the usage code. When I did a usage, did you see that this program is executing? So generally, assume that your friend has created a logic for a Facebook login, and he used the credentials for logging in. Say you are in the same project and you want to reuse the logic. You want to use the login, but you want to do for a different credentials. But if the other script is executing, it makes no sense, right? So then how to solve this problem? If I do a split write, at a time I can see both. So here I have the script. I am just importing, it is executing. If you want to avoid that, you need to write this condition called as name is equal to main. So this is called as a metadata about the program. For every program, there will be some metadata, so which will be helping. And if you execute right now, did you see what happened? This time when you did a usage, that program is not executed, right? So that is the magic that you need to understand. The magic is that a program can be executed in two ways, either directly or indirectly. So if I execute right now, did you see? And one more thing I want to bring to your notice. So you have this ls. If I say I'm getting these things, if I say ls underscore underscore pycache, you got this folder, right? If I say ls hyphen l or like hyphen la, if I say, what I'm trying to say is that this file was created at 10:2. So dash 25, like this happened. Now I changed it, right? I updated a different code. Now if I execute again that particular file usage, the usage will be executed. And after that, if I ask, hey, what is these files? Did you see it was created again? Means the pycache files, the bytecode files, will be every time recreated if there is any change in the original code. If the code is not changed, it will not create. That's one thing you need to be aware. Next, when you execute that code, let's say I'm executing this module 1 directly. When you execute directly, this name will be equal to main. But if you execute indirectly, when you execute indirectly, so when you are importing in another script, with the usage I'm executing, did you see that the name is equal to the module name? So the name will be script name if you are importing from another, like a module. If you are directly doing, this condition is so. So what you need to do, all the functions and logic you write in the top, but usage you do only within this condition. Then if someone is importing also, they will not have any problem. So that's why if you see any production codes, they will have these conditions. Second, now I imported this here. I want to use it. So how I do? Module 1 dot hello world. If I say, if I execute, it will execute. Did you say hello from module 1? So you have made a usage. So if I say like print, so usage of module 1. If I execute, it works. Usage of module 1, hello from module 1. So both are working perfect. Now let me go for one small logic again further. Now, if I want to create one more module, so instead of like this, I want to create one more module, say like module2.py. So similar logic I have, but I will do like this now. See here. So, and similarly, I want to create one more module called as module 3. Module3.py. So this time for this module 3, I want to add something. It's not just a function. So I'm doing some constant also. So if you see in total, if I say tree, did you see that? So there is one pycache file, 3 modules, 1 usage script. Now I want to import all of them together. I don't want to do individually. So I will go one level above. So I could see the ls, which is having this package. So now I want to import this package directly. I can go in IPython or like I can write a separate script also. Say like in terms of usage, how do you like usage of Python? Say package. So if I say usage package.py. So in package.py, I'm trying to import. If I say import package. So as in the current directory, I have usage package file. If I say Python usage package file, did you see nothing is imported? So package is not imported at all. So if I say print of package. So to give a clarity, again, if I say tree, did you see now what happened? 3 modules are there. Outside the package because fine is there. If I'm asking Python usage.py, it is saying that there is a module like this, but you cannot get anything. So if I ask like print of
dir of package. If I say here, it is saying that it has all these files and others. Means it is thinking like an ordinary folder, but you are not getting anything. But if you want all of them together, you need to go for __init__dot_py. So if I again clear the screen and show you the tree, now did you understand? In this particular package, you have added one init.py file. Any folder containing some Python scripts you want to import together, you do that. So once I did that, now again I'm asking the usage file, which is outside Python usage.package. The moment I did like this, did you see that it is saying this package? And earlier you remember it don't have these things. Very few things came, but now a lot of things came. If I clear this and if I ask, hey, what is the tree right now? Did you see that the module 1 is installed? So, and also this one, this module and so and so. And if I get a chance to delete this package fields, so delete them together. So delete them permanently. So now if I ask clear, if I say tree, did you see that in that package you have init and these files together? Now I'm asking again Python usage.py and others. So it is again creating these PyCache files. This time which one it created? Only for the init. Other modules it is not creating it. So that this is the difference between again Python 2 and 3. So in Python 2, everything will come by default. But in Python 3, so if you want to usage something, you need to import that. Say in Python 2, here also you have hello world. So in module 2 also you have hello world. In module 3 also you have hello world. So, but apart from that, few others are there. Now, if I do like a import module 1, so import, so module 2. So generally, you should not import multiple things in a single line. That is not a good practice. So module 3, if I do like this now in the init file, now you observe, as I told you, again it will regenerate everything and do. If I say usage Python, what it is saying, hey, I cannot import module 1 because though it is there in the current directory, in other things, in usage, you are able to import, but in init, you cannot import like this. In init, you need to do like from dot import this one. So that is how we need to do. So from dot, we need to import. What do you mean by from dot means, right? From current directory, you want to import these modules. If I do that now it is working perfectly. Did you see all these 3 modules were imported? And in terms of usage, did you see all the modules are there? So that is the difference. I repeat again. So if I clear the screen and if I give the tree, did you see what is the magic which was done? In the init file, I imported these folders. We need to first create the init file. Then we need to import these modules. As usage I didn't import, I will not get it. Or from a particular things, I want to import one thing specifically. I can do that. And in terms of the usage of this package, I can ask, hey, package dot module 1, so dot hello world. If I ask, if I execute Python usage, you will get that explicitly. So similarly, I can do the same things. If I have multiple such folders, I can do in the same way. So lastly, if you want to save the outputs of these things, we can go for something called as pydoc. Using pydoc, you can save. Or like now you can take an assignment. So the assignment is like similarly, you create one for calculator, one module for another thing. So like that, you can create another module. So simple logic, whenever you want to create, you create one package, say package 2, you add the files. So file1.py. So all these things you add, and you need to add a init.py __.py. So what are the files you have done? We need to import that here. So from dot import, so file1.